Well, today was a fun day in the 49ers universe as Baldy set the Brock Purdy topic on fire with his comments on 95.7 The Game earlier today. If you missed them, he effectively said, based on like a hypothetical question, slotting Brock Purdy as a top 5 paid quarterback, what would his advice be to John Lynch? And right off the cuff, he said, flip Purdy for Sam Darnold. And obviously, there's already no more polarizing topic that exists in the NFL than the 49ers quarterback position. Doesn't matter who it is. Could have been Jimmy Garoppolo, could have been Trey Lance. It doesn't matter. It's the position itself. I'm convinced. So Brock Purdy is now in that position. So if so facto, he becomes one of the more polarizing topics in the NFL. So that is said, and it was like throwing a match into a gasoline tank. I don't know. The topic exploded and everyone had a thought on it. Everyone had a take on it because it's from a guy that everyone respects from a football perspective and a guy who supported Brock along the way. So let's turn to another guy who is in a similar category, but he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, and he goes by the name Kurt Warner. He has also been a guy in Brock Purdy's camp. I think they see a lot of similarities in each other's play and stature and all those things. So take a listen to Kurt Warner reacting to that sentiment from Baldy right here.
Kurt, conversely, I want to ask you about Sam Darnold. A lot of talk about him here because he was here last year. Also, our friend Brian Baldinger came on earlier this morning and said he would try to flip Purdy for Darnold, even though that's not sort of really possible based on their situations. But I do want to ask you about Sam. Why has he suddenly popped and looked so much better, in your opinion?
I mean, the first thing just makes me laugh because, like, what about the last 2 years with Brock Purdy? Like, you know, I remember I kind of went through since St. Louis too, is that, you know, went to a couple Super Bowls, won a couple MVPs, and then we had a down year after our second Super Bowl. And, and people were asking, well, are you going to, change quarterbacks and whatever? And I just remember Mike Martz at one point in the season going, what, are you guys a part of the amnesia crowd? Like, have you forgot, what happened the last 3 years and how good Kurt was? Like, we're not just going to panic because we've had a bad stretch here, but it's almost like that's what we're doing in San Francisco. Let's forget about these last 2 years because this year hasn't been as good. And then the same with Sam Darnold. Let's forget about everything else he's done in the league because he's been wildly inconsistent. And although he's shown glimpses, he's never been able to put it together. And now he's having this incredible year in Minnesota. And we're all ready to say, oh, let's flop him and let's take this guy because he's having a great year, even though he's never shown the ability to put 2 great years together back to back. So it's so funny how we have such recency bias on so many different things in this league instead of just trying to figure out, okay, who is this guy? Yeah, that's what we need to know. Who is Sam Darnold? Is Sam Darnold the inconsistent up and down guy that we've seen most of his career, or is he the guy that we're seeing this year play with great confidence and being surrounded by great playmakers and being surrounded by a coach that believes in him and setting him up for success in a lot of situations? Is that what we're going to get from Sam Darnold? Is it just now he's matured, he's found the right system, and we're going to see this guy play this way the rest of his career? I don't know the answer to that, but I would have to see it. I would need to see another season like this before I'm ready to say that's who he is, because we've seen plenty of players in this league that, run into one of those just magical seasons. They have a magical run, in one season. They can win an MVP. They can go to the Super Bowl. Like, all these things can happen in one season. But then what happens is we normally see how this levels out. And you go, oh, okay, they had that one outlier season that was just better than everything else. And the rest of their career, they're this guy. And that's really what you're trying to figure out with all of these quarterbacks. And so Sam, I think, is in a great situation. He's playing really good football. He's surrounded by a lot of really good pieces that have made the game easier for him. And so things have just kind of come together perfectly for Sam this year. But I want to see another year like this, before I'm ready to go. That's the guy. And this is, who we thought he could be. I want to see him stack another season together that's just not quite as perfect, right? The things around him aren't quite as good, and show me that you can still be a similar type player. And now I can invest in something like that.
He literally thought the take was laughable. That's pretty interesting, considering, again, the point being that Kurt Warner, Baldy, two of the guys that are well respected when it comes to them giving their football takes and evaluating film and doing all those different types of things. So Kurt Warner, like I mentioned, and as he talked about, is just the situation applies with Sam Darnold. It's like, and this is like the hypothetical that I've been kicking back based on this topic is what happens if you switch Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy this year? Let's say, hypothetically, after the Super Bowl, whatever, the 49ers trade Brock Purdy to the Vikings this year. They just go, we're going to keep Sam as the backup. He's going to be the starter. We're going to trade you to the Vikings. And everything played out. The contract drama, like the holdouts, all of it, like just all the weirdness about this season. But now you have Sam Darnold in the mix as your quarterback. Do you think somehow Sam, without Christian McCaffrey, without a formidable offensive line, without all these weapons, Deebo Samuel's taking a step back. We know that Brandon Ayuk wasn't himself for this year, for missing training camp. All of those things, having no defense to start the year, special teams a disaster. You think that Sam Darnold would somehow perform better in that situation opposed to the situation he's currently in? And what, Brock Purdy wouldn't be an MVP candidate right now if he was plopped into the Vikings system? We already know he can run the system. And you give him the same weapons, you give him a defense that allows them to play complementary football and stay in rhythm, an offensive line that can protect him. TJ Hawkinson, Addison, Aaron Jones, like you don't that's why this, just like what he was saying, was this is recency biased. Yeah, Brock hasn't played well this year. He hasn't been like as a crazy efficient as he has been the years prior, but he's also had moments where he's played some of his best ball. I think of the game he had in week 6 against the Seahawks. He was on fire. The game he had week 4 against the Patriots, week 8 against the Cowboys, the second half he had against the Bucks. He's played well. Even that game against the Rams week 3 that they won, he was on they lost, excuse me. He was on fire for that. So the recency bias of it all, and he was on fire week 14 against the Bears. So the recency bias about it all is, I don't know, because I'm of the mindset that if you take that Sam Darnold and you plop him into this dysfunction where everything was a problem, I don't think you get the same results of Sam Darnold. I think you get old Sam Darnold. And again, if you put Brock in that situation that Sam is currently in, I think he goes to the moon. So I find the whole conversation to just be I've said it before on my live. It's just a lot of prisoner of the moment. I'm a big body of work guy, and that's exactly what also Kurt Warner said. Body of work. Did you guys somehow forget what he's capable of? Let's not pretend like Brock is the only one struggling this year. He's actually done pretty well this year considering all the struggles that this team has had. He's actually been pretty good, all things considered. Hasn't been the best, hasn't been, the sharpest, but still, I find this whole conversation to be crazy. just like he said, do we forget about everything? So I don't know. I've talked about this so much today. I'm probably just repeating myself at this point. So you just tell me what you think of what Kurt Warner had to say, your thoughts on this. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe.